All these camera YouTubers making these videos about how Sony has lost the plot and should you switch to Nikon, and did Sony really lose the plot, or should these camera YouTubers just stop with this nonsense? Hey everyone, I'm Cole Caparoon. Thank you for stopping by the Aperture Life for another video. So has Sony actually lost the plot, or are these camera reviewers just simply out of touch? Now, firstly, let me say that if you saw the thumbnail with Gerald and Maddie and Jared Polin and Tony in the thumbnail, I'm a big fan of all of those channels. This is not to throw shade at any of them. I just couldn't figure out how to make a thumbnail for this video in any other way. So absolutely no shade to those guys. Love their channels, love what they do. I'm going to reference them a handful of times in this video. But there are a ton of camera YouTubers, review channels. It's just a fire hose of should you switch systems. It gets a little exhausting. So today I want to break this down from someone who's an actual professional user, who's not sponsored by any of these companies, who doesn't get to test these cameras for free or doesn't get to keep these cameras for free. Someone who makes a sizable chunk of their total income per year with my cameras in equally both photo and video. So let's start off with this. I do think that most camera companies have caught up to Sony. For quite a handful of years, if you were both photo and video, if you were a hybrid shooter, Sony was the obvious choice. I no longer think that. Sony is no longer the obvious choice. You could choose a camera from literally any brand today and it will not hold you back. Now, there are some exceptions for very specific use cases. For instance, if 90 or 100% of the work that you do is on anamorphic lenses, you should probably choose a Lumix. If you have an actual red camera, a real red camera, and you're trying to cut footage between them, you should probably get the Nikon ZR for the red RAW. But outside of very specific use cases like this, all of this sell your Sony and switch systems is just nonsense, and I'm going to explain to you why. First of all, I think what all of these camera channels are getting wrong when they say, has Sony lost the plot, Sony's fallen behind, I don't feel that way. I think Sony was so far ahead for so many years, and all of these other camera companies have finally caught up. There's just, where do you go from here? Like, yeah, I know there's an argument that it should have open gate, and like there's a few little arguments, but like, where do you really go? There's going to be very little true innovation in any camera brand for the next 5 or 10 years because they've all just gotten absolutely incredible. And that's why to some people it feels like Sony is fallen behind and has lost the plot, so to speak. People were kind of bummed out about the A7 IV release because the A7 IV was such a good camera already, and they did fix a couple of the pain points like the rolling shutter and the slow readout speed, so that way you can capture faster burst rates, and they solved the 4K 60 crop, and like they fixed the pain points of the A7 IV, but it was such a good camera. I don't know what people were expecting with the A7 V. A Hasselblad? Like, what did you want from it? This goes to show that from here on out, every camera brand every new model is going to be tiny tweaks. There's no longer going to be these meteoric leaps in technology or in what a camera can do, like we saw when the Sony A7 III came out, or even the A7 IV or the Sony A7S III. When those cameras came out, they were gigantic leaps forward in what mirrorless cameras could do. And now what other people see other brands doing, like Lumix, is they're seeing those brands finally take these gigantic leaps forward to catch up with Sony. Now, yes, they all have their pros and cons. Yes, red RAW in the Nikon ZR is super cool and the screen is super cool. Yes, the Canon C50 seems like an absolutely incredible camera, and the R6 Mark III seems like a really good camera, but that's gonna be it. We're gonna see the same tiny incremental increases from all these other camera brands now that we have been seeing from Sony over the past few years, because there's just not that much to go. There's nowhere to go from here. We're gonna slowly get incremental tweaks and maybe, you know, more dense codecs, and we're gonna see slight bumps in resolution and color science and dynamic range, but all of the tweaks, I'm saying this like 100% confidently, all of the tweaks from every camera brand from here on are going to be very small and incremental, just like we've seen from Sony. And it feels like Sony has lost the plot because Sony made these gigantic leaps years ago, and now everyone else is just now making these gigantic leaps. Matty Hapoya did a poll on his Instagram, and he showed these poll results in a recent video of his, and he has a gigantic Instagram following, so I think this is a really good data set, actually. He asked what camera brand were people using, and it was like 51% Sony. And then Canon was next, and then a smattering of others. And then in the next poll, he asked if you could choose any camera brand to shoot with, what would you choose? And like 49% chose Sony. So this clearly shows that Sony has not lost the plot. But I think more importantly, what this shows is that real professionals that are actually doing this all day, every day, first of all, they're not influenced by the, oh, you need to sell this camera and switch systems to this. That's not how real professionals think. A real professional will switch if it solves a certain pain point, like I described earlier. The anamorphic lenses, you should go with Lumix. If you shoot with a red and you need to cut footage, you should go with the Nikon. But outside of these very specific real world pain points, no one's switching systems. Not only are they not switching systems, the vast majority of working professionals are not watching camera videos, they're not watching camera reviews, and they're not leaving comments under YouTube videos. In the exact same way that a carpenter doesn't endlessly watch videos about hammers, and they don't endlessly critique and compare hammers on YouTube videos and tell everyone that they gotta switch their hammer, otherwise they can't build a house correctly. These are just tools, just like the hammer is to a carpenter. And most of the working professionals have a vast collection of lenses. I am 18 lenses deep into the E-mount system. Even if I was extremely interested in switching systems, it would be such a massive, massive overhaul to do so that a new system from a new brand would have to solve all of my issues. It would have to be the holy grail camera while I'm using absolute dog trash. And for what? Because the other thing that all of these camera channels are missing is that switching systems won't get your videos a single extra view. It won't get your social media content a single extra like. And outside of having those very specific pain points that I discussed earlier, it's not going to get your clients to pay you a single extra dollar. The only reason anyone switches is because switching systems will make your life so much easier, so much infinitely better and easier, and solve so many problems that it is worth going through all the pain of selling all of your gear to do so. But saying you're gonna change systems, it gets clicks and it gets views. And if your job is to review cameras, then you're gonna wanna constantly change it up, because that's literally your job, is to have fun with the gear. But if you're an actual working professional, your job is to make content at whatever level or capacity that might be for you. And the people that are out there actually making the content, they're not switching. And so what I want to get across to you guys is stop worrying about it and stop letting camera reviewers influence you to spend money that you otherwise probably don't need to spend. If you've got any camera from any brand in the last generation or two of cameras, they're all good. And you should take all of that energy and all of that money and put it into better storytelling, better lighting, and spending money on travel. Because those are the things that will get your videos more views, that will get your social media more likes, and that will get your clients to pay you more money. No one cares what camera you're shooting on. And like Gerald Undone said in his A7 IV video, it's getting pretty hard to review cameras anymore, because they're all awesome. They're all so good and so equally matched that it just literally doesn't matter anymore. Now, if you're coming into this from scratch, or you have a very, very old camera, then that's a different conversation. You do get to choose what you think will be the best, what system you think will be the most synergistic to what you actually need out of a camera. For me personally, I think that most people should choose it based on what lenses are available, because the lenses at this point, now that all the cameras are so good, the lenses are by far the most important part. For me personally, Sony lenses just crush. The selection is gigantic. You've got like 10 different manufacturers to choose from. They're more affordable than other manufacturers. So I got into the Sony ecosystem years and years ago because they had the best autofocus, the best video specs, and the best lens selection. Now they no longer have a couple of those, but I do still think they probably have the best lens selection, and either way, it's a moot point. If I can't get the job done with my FX3 or my A7 IV, then I need to quit. So has Sony lost the plot? Absolutely not. Has everyone else actually caught up? Absolutely. And in some specific use cases, other companies are beating Sony. But there's no longer going to be a clear winner. Those days are over. It's the story that you tell that is important. Just like the carpenter and the hammer. It's the house that he builds with that hammer that is important. It doesn't matter what hammer he's using. I hope that this helped you. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.